Well, hello. Anybody there? Anybody there? It is us. Yes, it is. Sports Talk 916. After a COVID inspired vacation, we are back. I'm Coach Craig. That's that, I guess that way. That way is Mr. Chief, Greg Bull. And together we're the two headed monsters of Greg that we call Sports Talk 916. And we are so excited to be back. There wasn't anything going on for months, and then now all of a sudden everything in the sports world is going on. So we got plenty to talk to. So long time to talk to on this platform, huh?
Yeah, it's been a quick minute. What's up, TJ? What's up, Selena? Yeah, lots. Like you said, COVID basically gave us no reason to do a show. I mean, we couldn't sit here and just BS nonstop. But you know, we're back. We have sports. We have hockey, which I haven't watched anything yet. The NBA playoffs are going. Major League Baseball's in full swing. The Giants are at their halfway point today. Football's 2 weeks away. So,
and the Indy 500 is today too. I know you're excited,
but we could jump. We'll jump right back into it, full fledged. I mean, we'll go. It's been a nice break, and we'll start pissing people off again because that's kind of
there you go.
So let me ask you this: during all these weird times, obviously your coaching was put to a stop. Your interaction with swimming and water polo and all those other things you were doing was ended. For me, kids sports is over. Spartan races and all those different things are over. Gyms are pretty much shut down. What did you do to pass your time or to get your sports fix during COVID or during the beginning of COVID, I should say?
I actually watched a lot of Netflix. I watched more Netflix in that 3 or 4 month period than I think I've ever watched in my entire life. I drank more than I have in the last 30 years. And, I started watching, they were doing some reruns of games. I watched some reruns of games. And then, I know you don't like car racing, but NASCAR started. And there was one day where it showed like 30 UFC fights. So I was pretty much watching anything that was competitive just to get that sports fix.
Yeah, and I was blown away by like the NASCAR virtual stuff. Like the first time it came on, I didn't realize it was virtual, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I watched. I'm like, "Wait a minute, this looks a lot like an Xbox." So I did that. I watched more cornhole championships.
Yes.
Than I care to admit or want to admit.
Cornhole was pretty awesome.
Those guys blew my mind with some of those shots that they would take. Let's talk about Vladdy's departure. Seems like a legit starting point. That is number 1 on the agenda, Nick. We will be to that in just a moment. Watched a lot of cornhole. I could not get into watching or listening reruns of sports shows or games. I couldn't do it. Like Giants, CSN showed a lot of like the World Series runs. Couldn't do it. NFL Network decided to show the fucking Super Bowl, the Niners losing over and over and over again. Couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it at all. And
I think the sports that I watched more on reruns, I watched some football. I actually watched the game I liked the most was the Rams Chiefs Monday night game where they scored 100 and how many points?
180,000, I think it was, right, to be fair.
So that was pretty good. But yeah, I pretty much if there was a game on, I tried to watch it, and like you, I got stuck on cornhole more than I think anybody should ever be stuck with.
What's funny is I said I didn't want to watch reruns, right? But I found myself watching cornhole, even if it was a rerun. I had already watched the match, and I still watched it because I'm like, these guys just blow my mind. But it was cool.
And then ESPN decided in the middle of the night to run Korean Baseball Organization.
Well, yeah, that was the only sports on the planet going on.
Right. And so there were a couple of times where I woke up in the middle of the night and spent from 3 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the morning watching Korean baseball, and then I actually DVR'd a couple of games to watch them. And when I did that, I realized I was a sick human being, so I quit doing that.
TJ, I did watch the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, although it was lackluster. I did not like the format.
Yeah,
it just didn't work. Nick, yeah, when they showed some of the classics, like the mid '90s stuff, I watched those. Just because I was newer to sports back in like the mid '90s, late '80s. I didn't watch those as kids, so some of those were new to me, and they were cool. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. It was just I didn't even really listen to sports talk. I didn't follow along with many of the shows just because there was too much just hyperbole and too much just talking. There wasn't a lot of like, there wasn't any sports. There was no substance. So it was really tough to get into. I actually found myself, and this is kind of hard for me to admit, but I found myself at points not missing sports at all.
I agree.
I was kind of okay with no sports being on. It was kind of a nice break. UFC and Fight Island and those things were cool. I'll never stop watching WWE and those things. And now that there's legit competition on TV with wrestling, there's another brand that's up and running with AEW. It's kind of like the old WCW versus WWE days where there's two. Yeah, I know you don't care, but I mean, I found myself watching those every now and again. But even then, I was falling victim to the DVR. I was, fast forwarding the stuff I didn't care about, and then I was watching some things live, and I don't know, just the lack of fans made it really tough.
Yeah.
I too spent a lot of time on Netflix. I don't know about you, but I watched Tiger King religiously, and that was interesting.
I did too.
And I absolutely fell in love with The Last Dance. That was must-see TV, and I've watched that twice now because.
How old were you when Jordan was playing?
So at the end of the second three-peat, I was 10.
Okay.
And that was the first year, 94, 95 was the very first year that I really remember being hooked on the NBA and being hooked on basketball. And before the Kings were like my lifeblood with sports, 96, 97 was the first year that I really remember watching the Kings with Richmond. And I picked it up earlier in that summer. And, I remember the Rattle Seattle series and all of that stuff. But it was Jordan and that team drew me into basketball. And so like that, that hit home for me. Always one of my favorite teams growing up. And I never consider myself a Bulls fan, but I give all credit to the NBA being part of my livelihood was that team. So watching all of that stuff was really cool to watch. So I watched a lot of that. And then, now that sports is back, I find myself following along. Like I watched the Kings bubble until that burst. I'm watching baseball like it never went away, even with how bad the Giants were playing to start the year and how weird it was with no fans and the cutouts and all of that. Baseball still reigns true to my, my number one heartstring.
And I don't really notice the fans not being there. And in some games, a couple of the Dodger games, a couple of the Giants games, they're actually CGI putting in.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, it's weird. The other thing that I did, and I don't watch a lot of reruns, period. If I see a show once, I'm not usually one to go back and watch it. A couple of games that really stuck in my mind that were on during that period was that Rams-Chiefs game because it was just fun to watch. The other games that I'll watch anytime they're on are Game 7 of the 10, 12, and 14 World Series. And they showed those 2 or 3 times. And then
there was no Game 7 and 14.
Well, you know what I mean. The last game of each series. And Matt Cain's a perfect game.
Yeah,
every time that's
those are cool.
Watching it, and I still get nervous. My stomach gets tied up a little bit in knots going into the 7th and 8th inning. Fully knowing that he's going to throw a perfect game, but there's just something about that game. So,
and that's like that's like the last dance when Jordan hit those shots against the Jazz and against, the different teams. I'm like, I know it's coming, but it still gets you super excited to watch it. So yeah, those are cool. But like I said, I mean, it's nice that sports is back. I love hearing Kruk and Kite back on the air. I love seeing that the A's are playing such good baseball, just because, we've said it before on the show multiple times that fan base deserves to see good baseball. And it's fitting for that fan base that they're not able to be there to watch it. Not that they necessarily would show up anyways, but they're not there to watch it. And just hearing more of the actual game. Like, we went to that Kings game a couple years ago where the sound system was broken and you got to hear the game. Last night, one of the Diamondbacks players popped up to center field and you heard the loudest, clearest F-bomb I've ever heard in my life on TV.
Heard a lot of those.
And Kruk and Kite made a reference last night that said this year is setting a record for the most F-bombs on TV. And then Kuiper was like, no, it's not setting a record. It's just you can hear them. Yeah. And he's like, they're saying it at the same pace that they've always said up. It's just now you can hear them on TV. Nick, I'm right. I mean, A's fans would start eventually coming out once they know that they're sustaining success, but they wouldn't have been there from day one. But yeah, it's good. But it's hopeful that the NBA did things amazing. They did things right. They did the bubble. They did it the proper way. Major League Baseball, for whatever reason, on the East Coast is having a lot more trouble maintaining, maintaining their quote unquote bubbles around their team. The West Coast teams seem to be doing a little bit better, but that's, eventually going to either be, look, it's going to happen, or we're going to have to shut down. They're at the halfway point, which is good. Football is going to be really tough, I know, because of all the contact, but I think the NFL is smart to say, look, when it comes down time to the playoffs, we'll look into doing a bubble, which I think is very smart. But I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. But at the same time, it's like, look, guys are going to get this shit. These guys are in tip-top shape. Let them get it. I mean, I'm at the point now where it's like, if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. Yeah. It's their choice to be there. Let them play. It's not going to kill a bunch of these guys. But yeah, sports are back. We're going to talk about the Kings next, but I'm going to give you a chance real quick to discuss your everyday life, because you're
real world.
You're still working. And while you do that, I'm going to grab me a bottle of water.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, hey, one of the things that I missed for about 6 weeks was being able to work and work with people and trying to find them the right home to live in. And we finally got that back up and running, and this market has turned crazy. It's the only way you can describe it. Multiple offers. Prices are shooting up. If you want to sell your home right now is the best time to do it. And I can almost guarantee you that if you put your house on the market, you price it right, within 2 or 3 days, you'll have offers that you will not believe. We're seeing 10, 15%, 20% over asking price. We're seeing 15, 20, 25 offers on places. It is definitely a seller's market. If you are thinking about selling, even thinking about it, give me a call. Let's talk about it. There's no obligation. If you call me, doesn't mean that you have to sell your house. It just means that, hey, you're interested and you want to find out. So give me a call, 916-223-6688. That's my private cell number. Feel free to give me a call, and let's talk about what we can do to try to get your house sold. And if you're looking for a house, it's a little tougher, but it's there. It's doable. You just have to have a good, strong agent that knows how to write offers and get you in the best possible position to have your offer accepted. And I can do that for you. So, again, anything that you need real estate-wise, give me a call, 916-223-6688.
Cool. All right. Hey, look, we switched sides.
There we
go. So Nick mentioned it a minute ago. We'll talk about it now. Vlade Divac's out as general manager of the Sacramento Kings. He resigned. I think that was probably likely that it was more or less like, hey, look, I don't want to get fired. But something had to change. He kind of gave himself a self-imposed deadline that did expire. The team was technically better. Like, there's no denying that, but there are issues with the way things went about with the team and the expectations. And I still think the hiring of Luke Walton was not the right move, but we have to regress on that. But what do you think about Vladdy's departure? Do you think it was the right time? Do you think he should have waited at least till maybe after the draft? I mean, where do you see? Let me rephrase that. Give me a grade of what Vladdy did, and then give me a grade on a scale of like A to F, F being the worst, obviously, of how hard it's going to be for a general manager to come in here and right the ship, because it's going to be one of those situations where it's like, fuck, who wants this job?
Well, there's going to be people that want the job because it's a job, and they'll be able to put on their resume that they were an NBA general manager. So there's going to be people that want the job. The problem is you got one guy that's standing in the way, and his ego is too big, and he won't step aside and let the people who know how to do things do it. Now, the more I think about it, I would give Vladdy probably a B or B minus with the job that he did, given the circumstances that he had to deal with. And he was really good about not throwing Vivek under the bus. Oh no, I'm in charge. It's my decision. Everything else is mine. No, there's no way. I just don't think that Vivek has the ability to shut up and let people do their job. And it was. I mean, there was a video that was going around the year that who did they draft? Was it Stauskas? Yeah, it was Stauskas. Did you see that video?
That Vivek demanded that they take him, and they wanted to take Giannis? Yeah.
So, and I just don't see him. I mean, yeah, he's gotten out of the public spotlight, but he's still involved. He's still involved on a day-to-day basis. In fact, the reports are coming out now that, the new GM's not going to report to Joe Dumars, who I can't imagine is going to even stick around.
No chance in hell.
No. They're going to report to Vivek. And it's just, the definition of insanity, this franchise is insane. They keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and they're just insane. And yep. I think until the minority owners get together and somehow oust Vivek as a managing partner, we're going to have the same thing. We're going to have them drafting people that Vivek likes, who have the skills and the potential to be a Golden State Warrior team, instead of building our own, way we do things and our own identity. And he won't let it go. And I don't think it's going to matter who you bring in. You can bring in Pat Riley and have him run things, and Vivek would still screw things up, and Riley would leave after about 3 days.
Yeah, and I don't see Dumars doing a damn thing. Like, yeah, he's going to be involved in the search for a new GM, but let's be real. Dumars is one step above Vlade when it comes to shittiness of general manager. I mean, he'll be forever known as the guy who took now I'm drawing a blank on what the hell this guy name is.
Darko Milicic
over Bosch or Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. Like, good job, dumbass. Like, why would you want him there? Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. When that report came out from Sam Amick this week that the Kings general manager will be reporting to Vlade Divac, that right there throws up all red flags. It's going to be another shit show. And it's disappointing because you can definitely bring in a general manager that could right this ship. but he's not going to have the opportunity to do his job. You're going to hire someone basically to not do their job fully, which is completely, it's disrespectful to whoever you hire as a general manager. Not to mention, let's take that factor out of it, right? Let's say that Vivek didn't meddle in it and he was like, look, it's your team, fix us. Where do you start? Because here's the deal. We can look at 3 glaring moves that Vlade made that are going to completely hinder the ability of this new general manager to build the team. Number 1, declining Harry Giles option. Harry Giles should be a part of this team, and the way he played this year, it should have been easy to extend him on the player option next year. Number 2, not throwing the importance of the so they threw a extension offer to Bogey. However, it was clear that he was a second tier option on this roster. His value was not expressed to the level that it should have been. That's why Bogey declined the option. He knows that he can probably get more. He is restricted, which means the Kings are going to have to pay more to keep him. But they made it very clear that Buddy Hield was more valuable to this franchise than Bojan Bogdanovic. And to me, that was the biggest mistake. Buddy should not have been extended before Bogey was. I don't feel that he should have been extended before De'Aaron Fox. He should have been at least number 2, maybe number 3 in the hierarchy, because Buddy's game doesn't fit with Luke Walton's style.
Right.
You're paying a guy to be a top 15 talent in the league, and he's coming off the bench.
But who is Buddy's biggest fan? And it's Vivek. And I think, I'm going to disagree a little bit with Nick and his C- D+ for Vlade. And I'm going under the assumption that Vlade's moves weren't Vlade's moves. Vlade's moves were what Vivek wanted. And his B minus grade is dealing with Vivek and putting together, still what looks like a pretty good team based on what I'm sure Vivek wanted him to get. Now, if all of these decisions were really in fact Vlade's decisions, and he was the one making them and wasn't checking with Vivek, I'd say D- because he just didn't do it. But this whole thing just smells of Vivek. And I can't give – I think Vlade just – he just did the best with what he could. And, he put together a team that, we all were sold on.
Here's the problem. And I've called the Vlade move this since day one. It was a Band-Aid move. It was a Band-Aid to make Kings fans feel better, to keep the nostalgia of the winning ways so that they could try to rebuild. If they hired any other general manager who had any clout to his name in that role, he would have not been a yes man. He would not have set back and let Vivek run the ship. He would have put his foot down and said, look, you hired me to do the job. You either let me do the goddamn job, not just say it, but actually force him to do it. Because Vlade said that multiple times. Oh, I've told Vivek that this is my team and I'm going to build it. No, okay, cool. Saying it and doing it is different.
Yeah.
But if they would have hired a real GM, this wouldn't even be a topic of discussion, because that GM would have the backing of his track record to come out and say, look, stop butting in. Vivek hired Vlade to be a yes man. End of story. No way you're going to tell me differently. He was not hired to be general manager. He was hired just to be the scapegoat. And, if you mentioned Pat Riley, you think if they would have thrown the money at like a guy like Pat Riley to be the general manager, that he would have stuck around as long as he did?
No.
To do that? No, because he has the track record to go, look, I've done this before. Let me do my job. Vlade barely knew how cap space worked before he started signing people. So,
and I think, the other thing that hurt Vlade was, what's his face went to New York.
Scott Perry.
When Scott Perry left,
you and Barnbaum are on the same page, because Barnbaum has a question about Scott Perry. So finish this thought and we'll ask Barnbaum's question.
Okay. So Scott Perry, when he was here and acting as kind of an advisor to Vlade, things started kind of moving in the right direction. I think the problem, and I think Perry had the clout to be able to tell Vivek to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
When New York came out and said and offered him the GM job,
it was a no-brainer. Of course you leave.
And here's the other thing. How bad is it in Sacramento when you think a job with the Knicks is a better job than with the Kings?
Exactly.
Because the Knicks are pretty much universally thought of as a complete and utter joke and the bottom of the bottom feeders in the NBA. I mean, you listen to all the national guys, especially, that screaming guy on ESPN and a bunch of other guys, they hate James Dolan. They think he's the biggest idiot ever. But how bad is it here when you're leaving Sacramento to go to that shit show? So that tells you a lot about what's going on here in Sacramento with Vivek. And I don't know. I just I can't imagine Scott Perry coming back here. I don't know.
So here's the deal with the Scott Perry thing. And Barnbaum says, what do you think about Scott Perry leaving? Well, Scott Parry, I don't know who that is. Hopefully Scott Perry is the guy that leaves New York and not Scott Parry. But he's under contract. They're not going to just let him go. So ultimately it's going to have to be a John Gruden style, you're going to Tampa Bay from Oakland move. They're going to have to make a trade, and it's probably going to end up taking like a second-round draft pick to get them to release Scott Perry from his role in New York. Now,
at least we have a ton of second-round draft picks to use.
Yeah, we have like 40 next year. The difference is, like you said, why would he want to leave New York? They're at least on an upward swing. Vlade Divac in this situation put the Kings back in the dumpster. They're going to have to completely rebuild. Brent Barry would be a nice little move because he's actually helped build a team. But what I want to see him do is I want to see them go after an assistant general manager who's been around a team long enough to know how to run a team. Because there's a lot of assistant GMs. San Antonio's would be a good one. I believe Brent Barry is actually that guy in San Antonio. The assistant GM to Elton Brand in Philly. He was the assistant general manager to Sam Hinkie when Hinkie was there, and they promoted Brand over him. And the fact that he's still there is mind-boggling to me that he was still that loyal, but he knows how to run a team. He saw a rebuild happen. Now, they got lucky in the draft, and, they were able to get some really good players, but they also missed as well. Like they missed on Markelle Fultz. So that didn't hurt them that bad because they obviously got Ben Simmons in return. But Kings fans, and the problem with the Kings fans and the media is they throw out names that are just completely impossible to have happen. I've seen, I don't know the kid's name, but they threw out the assistant general manager to Danny Ainge in Boston. Dude, do a 30-second search on this guy's name. The first article that comes up is that he grew up a Celtics fan. It was his lifelong dream. He wrote papers in the 7th grade that he wanted to run the Celtics. He's the second in line to Danny Ainge's job in Boston. You think he's ever fucking leaving Boston? No. Like, don't just start throwing out names. It doesn't have to be a sexy hire. I don't give a shit if they hire Joe Schmo, but as long as he knows how to run a franchise, I'm okay with it. Maybe we don't need to hire a big name guy. Maybe that'll allow them to fly under the radar and do their job without the magnifying glass on them.
Yeah, but here's the problem. That kind of person flying underneath the magnifying glass isn't going to have the cachet to be able to tell Vivek to shut up. So you're almost forced to hire somebody, and it doesn't have to be a superstar name. It doesn't have to be a Pat Riley or somebody like that. It has to be somebody coming from a franchise like San Antonio who obviously know how to run a franchise and can say, look, bring me in here. You're going to, pay me a lot of money. Let me do my job.
Right.
But it's got to be somebody that can stand up to him. And I don't think somebody that comes, just a Joe Schmo is going to be able to do that.
No, it's going to be very interesting at all. Joe Schmo's already declined an interview for the position. Thanks, TJ. The Kings, however, the draft lottery did occur a couple days ago. And the Kings were slotted in 12. They're going to be drafting 12. Minnesota, Charlotte, Chicago all jumped up in the draft. They moved into the top 4. The draft order next year for the draft comes out as Minnesota, Golden State, Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland, Atlanta, Detroit, New York, Washington, Phoenix, San Antonio, Sacramento, New Orleans, and then Boston. The thing that also needs to be brought up before we start discussing what to do about the Kings in this draft is Kings fans need to stop reading Twitter. They need to stop reading speculation posts, because here's the deal. And I'm sorry I keep fucking with this earbud. It won't stay in my fucking ear and it's bugging the shit out of me. There's not a general manager in Sacramento. So any report that you see coming out of Sacramento that says, oh, well, if the Kings want to trade for this guy, it's going to take this and this. There's no one there to fucking give that information. So stop believing the information you're reading on all these like basic, substantial reports that, oh, the Kings have inquired about this guy. Oh, if the Kings want to get Zach LaVine from Chicago, they're going to have to give up Buddy Hield in a 2nd-round draft pick. Who are they calling to find this shit out? Stop getting so hung up on shit like this. It's not happening. Wait until we have a general manager in place. Wait until they see if he can even sit down and coexist with Luke Walton and that process, and then let them decide on what to do for trades or for free agents or whatever it might be. The draft, I believe, was pushed back to November. That gives the Kings time to get a general manager, which is great. But I think it might have actually been Nick on one of the Facebook groups that said this. Can the Kings please just draft best available? Don't fall in love with the name. Don't worry about a position. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize the franchise anymore. Literally go into it with an open book that says these are the best people, regardless of position, and take the best one on the board.
Right.
Stop chasing a certain person or a certain position. Like, if you find someone that's the best point guard available and he's the best talent on the board, take him. Let him sit behind De'Aaron Fox. If you find the best shooting guard, great. Bogey and Buddy can battle it out. The Kings have to get talent, period.
Well, they have to get talent that'll stay healthy, too.
That, too. Now, at 12, if you were the new general manager, do you try to trade out? Do you try to trade up? Is there anyone on the roster?
What do you have that you can trade somebody and a 12th pick that's going to be better than what somebody can get at 6 or 7?
Well, let's put it this way.
Anything.
The Kings also draft 35th, 43rd, 52nd in the 2nd round as well. So they have 3 2nd-round draft picks also.
But it's not like the NFL where, the league is built on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th-round draft picks. In basketball, it's 1st-round picks, and it's usually the first 8 to 10 players that can usually make some kind of impact. And then you're drafting for, the 3rd and 4th round of the NFL draft is pretty much, to me, the same as picks number 10 through 25 in the NBA. Those are the guys that are going to be coming off the bench. They're going to be role players. I heard somewhere the other day the list of the best number 12 picks in the draft, and there wasn't really anybody that you could say is a major impact player who has been drafted in the last 10 or 12 years. And then as far as anybody who on our team are you going to trade? Somebody's going to be willing to give up their spot in the draft. I just don't think that.
So let me go this.
Buddy who shoots about 38% or 32% and has been a moper and a whiner.
Right. So here, the moping and whining may just be a direct relation to the fact that Walton doesn't know how to use them.
He had the same problems with Jaeger.
So here are the names of 12th round pick or 12th picks. The last 10 years was PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Luke Kennard, Torian Prince, Trey Lyles, Dario Saric, Steven Adams, Jeremy Lamb, Alec Burks, Xavier Henry. Some of those guys have been playing relatively well. I would take a few of those guys on this roster if you got to go back. Other notables in the 2000s was Jason Thompson of the Sacramento Kings, Thaddeus Young, Nick Collison, and then, I mean, going back even further, you're right, there's not very many. Greg Anthony was taken 12th. Mookie Blaylock was 12th.
They're good players. I mean, they're
Jim Paxson, going back to your childhood.
I mean, they're good players, but there's no stars.
Julius Erving.
What's he called? Yeah, but the reason he was taken so late is the ABA was going then too, and so he was drafted, I think, by the ABA, and said he was going to sign there.
Yep. And so, I mean, yeah, the 12th pick is pretty much worthless. But if you could package, man, if you could package Buddy in the 12 to some, even if you don't need to move all the way up. I mean, if you could get up to like Atlanta, if you could get up to Atlanta at 6, maybe even Detroit at 7, I think your prospect of replacing a guy like Buddy Hield in that draft pick is a lot higher. But I don't know. I
don't know. I mean, I almost think the only way you're going to be able to move up is you're going to have to throw in Fox. Fox is going to have to be part of that deal because I think he's really the only player that has any draft cap or any trade capital. Buddy had one good performance, and that was the 3-point contest. Really, has he done that
good performance? Buddy had some games. What about? I know he hasn't stayed healthy, and I know that Kings fans are hard on him. But what about trade? If you could find a team that's willing to, take a flyer on Marvin Bagley, get him out of a bad situation, give him a restart. He was the 2nd overall pick 2 years ago. There's going to be a team that maybe isn't sold on a big in the top 10 that they feel like they need to get one. What if you trade 12 and Bagley for somebody? Do you think that there's any value based on solely off of potential and just getting him out of a bad situation?
It's the only thing there can be is potential. And he hasn't really done. I mean, when he's played all right. But
what if you included Buddy and Bagley in a deal with 12 to move up into the top 5? I mean, I think you take that.
Yeah, probably.
It might take a little bit of gutting, some of these top picks, but if you think about it,
let me ask you this now: do we know if it's that kind of draft where there's going to be a group of consensus top flight players, or is this going to be the Purvis Ellison draft?
Don't bring up that name, please.
Well, yeah, but we got the number 1 pick, and that was there was one person. Sean Elliott was the only person out of that draft that really did anything. We know. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of film to look at these guys because they didn't play last year. Half of them are probably. All you have is high school to look at. You don't have a whole lot of information to draw from. I don't know if you got your team for this draft. I don't know if there's that many players that are good enough down to 7, 8, or 9 that you're going to probably only be able to move up to that are worth gutting your team for. You don't want to gut the team and take steps back. We're done. We've taken enough steps backward. We're up against the wall now. Now we have to move forward. I'm not sure that this draft has that potential.
So first of all, I'm looking at mock drafts right now, and I can't even believe that freaking another Bald brother is in the top 2. it looks like this mock has the Warriors taking LaMelo at 2, which would just be unfair to the league because, be it aside how fucking much of a shit show that family is, that kid can play basketball.
Yeah.
I actually think that it's even safe to say that he's going to end up being a better NBA player than Lonzo is. But I mean, there's the center, Onyeka Okongwu out of USC, who's a lot are calling the best prospect in the draft. You have Wiseman, the young kid from Memphis, the center from Memphis that was touted as probably the best player that ended up missing a lot of games last year due to, I believe it was due to ineligibility. It wasn't necessarily even injury. This mock has him falling all the way to Detroit at 7. You don't think you can maybe move up to 7 from 12 and get a guy like that if he falls? And then that wouldn't hurt losing Bagley. If you can lose Bagley for a kid like him, why not? This mock has the Kings taking Isaac Okoro from Auburn. He's a 6'6" forward. Cole Anthony's another guard that comes up. I think James mentioned him earlier. Just in case Fox won't extend, you could look at Cole Anthony out of North Carolina. RJ Hampton is another guard who's a good-looking one from New Zealand. He's playing in New Zealand. Nick just mentioned him. And then Aaron Naismith is also another good-looking guard out of Vanderbilt, 6'6" shooting guard. So there's prospects there. I think that I just think that it's going to come down to the clout of the general manager. Like if they hire a guy like Scott Perry, who does have connections in the league, who can make a deal, then maybe something can happen. But if you're going to hire another guy like, Vlade, who's learning the job and who just fits because he'll take it, then you're screwed completely because there's nothing to have there. But we'll talk more NBA stuff as everything progresses. But we're gonna switch gears here. We're gonna switch over to talk a little bit of Major League Baseball. But first, I want to mention Albert Chavez. He's been one of our lead sponsors here on the show for damn near the inception of the second running here. And you've already mentioned the importance of having a good realtor like yourself who can go ahead and write up a strong offer. The second part of that is going to be making sure that you have a lender who can have you a solid pre-approval, solid funding, and a quick closing cost that's going to help that offer be rock solid. So I've purchased and sold 4 houses now through Albert, either through myself or directly through my dad. And I also worked to refinance through him. He is quick. He's persistent. He's very knowledgeable with what is going on in the market. And Albert is the guy to call for either buying or refinancing your home. If you're looking to call Greg, you don't know what to do. You don't know if you can get approved, where your numbers are. Call Albert, 916-230-1537. He can go ahead and get all the information to you, get you pre-approved, let you know exactly what your spending power is, and he closes loans fucking fast.
Just so you know, if you call me and are thinking about buying, the first question I'm going to ask you is if you talk to a lender. So if you're thinking about buying a house, give Albert a call. Let him get you pre-approved. That makes our process that much easier.
Yep. Once you have a pre-approval, then Greg can write an offer. If you don't have a pre-approval or you don't have solid funding, you're pretty much stuck at square one. So call Albert, then call Greg, or vice versa. Get these two guys working on your team, and you'll be in a new home relatively quickly. Yep. 916-230-1537. That's Albert Chavez with United Wholesale Lending. Yes, Mike, that's where the 1140 sponsor with United Wholesale comes together. Albert and Shelby actually work together quite frequently. They're in the same office. But for purposes of our show, we refer you to Albert, not to the other guy. Baseball, Oakland Athletics. We brought on a new writer for our website, for our podcast page on Facebook, so that A's fans are getting some love too. Cody Holliday's been doing a great job with that, so we definitely appreciate him. Yeah. The A's are the second best team in baseball right now, only behind the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are 21-8. The A's are sitting at 19-9. They have the last 10 games haven't been going as well as they had previously before they before they or right after they swept the Giants. They got swept by Arizona in Arizona. They lost the game last night, but they're still playing great baseball. Piscotty, Olson, Chapman, up and down the lineup, these guys are just going ridiculously hard. Their bullpen is probably one of the best in baseball. And ironically, if I told you all of that, 19-9, their run differential is 32, they're 12-4 at home, they're 3-0 against teams over 500. They're playing amazing baseball. If I told you all of that was the case, and they're arguably one of their best hitters in the entire league. The Celtics just swept the Sixers, by the way. If I told you that Chris Davis was batting 164, you would think I fell and hit my head. Imagine how much better the A's are going to be when Chris Davis joins the fold with Grossman hitting 290. You have Chapman hitting 250. Canna's at 283. Matt Olson, he has 18 hits and 9 of them are home runs. He now has 2 doubles. Like last week, he had 15 hits, 8 home runs, 7 singles, nothing more. Like it's either single, home run. He's starting to hit the ball in different spots of the park. Piscotty's hitting the ball well. This Oakland A's team up and down is phenomenal without Chris Davis. This team is going to be ridiculous if he figures out a way to hit the ball. If he can start hitting the ball, this team is going to be, just up there with the likes of the best of them. I mean, they already are, but they're going to be up there even more, like to be contention for a deep playoff run. And I think the A's are going to be aggressive if they keep playing this way at the trade deadline. I think one name to keep an eye on that is going to bolster this team, and I think they're going to be in trade talks with, is going to be the San Francisco Giants, and it's going to be Johnny Cueto. I could see the A's getting aggressive, trying to bring in Cueto if he can help them with the playoff run. They also have one more year of team control. It's probably a little bit more than the A's typically like to pay at $23 million next year, or $21 million next year. And the A's went 3-1 while Laureano was suspended. So this team is good. I wish fans could be there to watch them because, again, like I said, it's just unfortunate that they're not able to be in the building. But I don't know if it's a prospect or a outcome of the shortened season. The A's always start off very fast, and then they tend to. God, every time I say something with an S, Siri turns on. They're playing good ball, and I hope they sustain it. Like it's a 60-game season. They're at the halfway point now. Will they continue to be one of the best teams in baseball? And I hope they do. Although, can you imagine the A's finally pull through? Let's say they win the World Series. How big of an asterisk is going to be next to that World Series championship that team does? Yeah. And that's going to be disappointing as well. But
I don't know that. I think that anybody who wins the World Series this year is going to have that asterisk. It's just not. It's a weird season. I mean,
it is.
Who knows if we're even going to get the playoffs in?
They'll get the playoffs in.
St. Louis can't play a game. New York Mets can't play a game. There's teams that are at one point I think everybody else had played 20 plus games, and St. Louis had played 5.
Yeah, but they're already come up with a plan on those. They're going to end up playing 7-inning doubleheaders to get them back up and running. It's going to happen. I have no problems with worrying about. I have more worry that Major League Baseball I have less worry that Major League Baseball is going to finish their season than the NFL is going to finish theirs.
I heard today that the NFL is thinking about going to a bubble in the playoff time.
Only the playoffs. So they still have 16 or 17 weeks of regular season to fight through first. But yeah, it'll be fun. I hope the A's continue to do well. I like having the ability to cover the team and provide coverage for them since they are playing so well. And I hope it continues for them. The Giants, on the flip side of that, are not the second best team in baseball. They are, in fact, the third worst team in baseball. I could double check that, but that was what it was a couple of days ago. But they're playing better ball. They've won 5 straight. They have a chance to sweep Arizona today to make it 6 straight. Sean Anderson pitched a 3-hit complete game yesterday. They're finally playing good ball. Kepler's finally letting guys stay in the game and complete pitching. They've called up Joey Bart, which I think is a huge move. We'll talk about that.
There's today talk about them bringing up some of their other AAA prospects too.
Yeah, Helio Ramos has been mentioned a couple times, which I think would be a great move. So the Giants are sitting at 13-16 right now. They've won 5. They're only 2 teams worse than them. The Pittsburgh Pirates are 6-17. The Philadelphia Phillies are at 9-14. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim are 9-19. Well, there's actually a lot more teams now. Detroit's 10-15. Yeah. Boston's 9-19, which is ridiculous. And they're only 2 games out of the wild card, which is, I don't know if that's something to get all, hoorah about, but, it'll be interesting to see if this team can continue playing. They did designate Hunter Pence today for free agency or for assignment. He'll clear waivers. He'll unfortunately, he's obviously not going to report back to the alternate site in Sacramento. He's going to just go home and wait for another team to call if injuries are happening like that. Now they're the 12th worst record in baseball. I have to imagine that Pablo Sandoval is next to be DFA'd. And it makes perfect sense. Those guys were brought in this year for fans. It's much like the Vlade Divac hire at general manager. It was for the fans. It was to let them know, yes, we're in a rebuild. If they help us out, great, but you get to see a familiar face in the building. There's no fans. There's no need to watch the struggles that these guys are having on the field. It allows younger guys to come up. It allows more guys to get playing time. It allows Duggar to get back out into the outfield. It allows Dickerson to get more reps. It allows Dubon to play a little bit more center field. You also have, Yastrzemski, who's not losing his daily job. He's not going anywhere. So there's a lot of, hope losing those guys. It sucks to see them go, but it makes 100% sense for them to be removed from the rotation out there.
Does Pablo go before Gott goes?
Don't get me started on Trevor Gott. That guy has been beat up enough. He doesn't need us to do it too. Like I said, they're hot streaks at 5 games. They're looking to get 6 today. The biggest dilemma, and I'm going to let you go on a Gabe Kapler rant because I know you want to do that. But the biggest dilemma ties into something that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show, and that is what you do at first base with Brandon Belt. Do you try to move Belt for anybody? Do you try to get Buster Posey to play first base? And I think that now becomes a much more serious topic because of the fact that Joey Bart is up. You're not going to see Joey Bart go back down. If he continues to play well and call games well and build a rapport with this pitching staff, Joey Bart's going to have a legitimate shot to be the Giants' everyday catcher. I've talked to multiple friends that are Giants fans. I've talked to Addison, who's our Giants writer on our website, and it's come up multiple times. Could you see Buster Posey not returning to the Giants? And I could see him being moved. I could see him being released out of the contract. But more realistically, what I want to see is I want to see them sit down with Posey, have a heart-to-heart with him and go, look, the last 3 years, you haven't had your legs under you when it matters most. You obviously are coming off of a big. Are you falling asleep?
Huh?
Oh, just the way you're sitting there, it looks like you're dozing off.
No.
Posey is a great first baseman. He has a great glove. He can still be out there and, seeing the game, being out there around the pitching staff. And you let him play first. You save his legs. And when Bart needs a day off or a rest, you have Buster Posey fill in behind the plate for him to keep his catching skills up. That way, God forbid if something happens to Joey Bart, then you still have Posey fresh behind the dish with all the different pitchers.
You're missing part of that, though. And I have a feeling that DH in the National League is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think they'll keep it. So between Bart and Posey, you can have them playing every day and get them some rest by having one catch, the other either play first base or DH, or do some kind of rotation between those three positions. As long as you don't let Heineman or whatever his name is, rack up any more catcher interference calls.
Good Lord. I was going to bring that up. I have never seen so many catcher's interferences in my life.
I can't remember seeing more than about 2 in my entire life. And I saw 3 in one game.
There's been like 7 of them on the Giants alone, and they've only played 30 games. It's unbelievable. But to answer
getting back to that, I think if you can get to a point where you have Posey catching 70 to 80 games, you have Bart catching 70 or 80 games, and then the other one either DHing or playing first base. And if Belt can ever get his bat together, I think that becomes a good 3-man rotation of first base, DH, and catcher.
Well, here's the deal. Bart's not going to play first. Bart's going to be catcher or DH. Period. He doesn't have another position in his repertoire. He's been a catcher since he's 13 years old. That's all he's ever done. Posey played third base and shortstop in college before he became a catcher. He's also played first base. So Posey has the value to be that first baseman platoon guy with the catcher. And I think it'd be better off having like a 120-60 split or a 120-40 split for Posey and Bart. You have Bart damn near your everyday catcher, and then every 2 weeks or so he gets a couple days off where he DHs just to keep his legs fresh, and then Posey gets behind the dish. I don't think you do a 50-50 split, or I guess 70-70 wouldn't be 50-50, but yeah. I think you have more of like a 60-40 or a 75-25 split. You let Bart be your guy, and you still have Posey out there. And you got to remember too, like, let's say Bart's struggling to get a feel of Cueto. If you have Posey out at first base or Samardzija or whoever the pitcher is, they call a mound visit. Posey's right there to also talk with Bart. Like it's one of those guys where it's almost like a player coach situation. And I think that brings the most value. If Posey's constantly DHing, then you don't get the ability to have him as an extra piece on the field. And I think that's ultimately where the best bet's going to be for the Giants is you have Posey is one of the best hitters in baseball. He squares everything up. He rarely swings and misses, but as the season prolongs and his legs aren't there, he's just not that player.
Right.
And I don't think Posey ever wants to leave San Francisco. I don't think the Giants ever want him to be gone.
No.
And I think that's the best bet for him is you finally condition him to be your first baseman going forward. It reminds me a lot of Mike Piazza. Piazza finally started playing first base at the end of his career. Imagine if, he was 10 years in like Posey is. And now Posey gets a year off. He's resting those legs. He's getting healthy. Imagine if Piazza would have switched over from catcher at 10 years as opposed to 17 of 20.
Right.
You would have, would have had the most production you've ever seen out of a catcher out of Piazza. And you already did. I see a lot of that where Posey can prolong his career and have an even better Hall of Fame style career, and the Giants benefit from it tenfold.
I think I agree with everything he said, with the exception of one thing. And that is, I've heard a lot of people talking on the radio, scouts and writers who know the game, who say that Bart can play first base and that he's got all the tools to do it. He might need a year or two to learn how to do it, but he's got the tools. And I agree with you, having Posey playing on the field as much as possible. But I think there can be a 3-position rotation that you could. I mean, even if Bart's playing 20 or 25 games at first base and he's DHing the rest, I think you can get away with that. And I think, according to some of the experienced people that I've heard on the radio, they talk about him. That's an option for him.
Now the thing is, though, I've heard that too, that he can play it. He has the tools to play it, but he's never played it. So I would be much more inept to have him get his days off at the DH and keep his batting up than worry about him having to learn another skill set at first base.
I think you send him to the winter leagues. You send him to the Arizona Fall League.
But if he's your everyday catcher, you don't want him taking that many more reps. There's so much for him to learn, and a freak accident that can happen with him learning in those lower leagues. You let him do it in spring training, maybe. You let him do it on off days, take a couple grounders during batting practice to see if he has it. But I think with the high draft pick and the promise of him sliding into that role of Buster Posey, I think you keep him away from first base as long as you possibly can. Posey didn't start playing first base until 5 or 6 years into his career.
Right.
He wasn't out there early. You let him learn to catch Major League Baseball pitchers before you move him over to first base.
Well, he's already there. I mean, he can catch Major League pitchers.
Well, if you watch the last couple of games, there were multiple mound visits, and Kapler talked about it afterwards, that Bart was having trouble with the signs and with keeping his guys calm, and he had to take extra visits to get out there and figure it out. I think, as long as Buster Posey's on the roster, Joey Bart catches and DHs, and there's nothing else. There's no need for him to be out there doing anything else. If Posey leaves, if Posey retires, if he gets traded, if he decides, look, I'm not going to first base, then maybe you transition him. But until then, Joey Bart is your catcher, and I don't think you fuck with it. I
mean, I can see Posey doing a Barry Sanders and going, you know what? My family's good. Yeah, he's out. And how about those two twins getting the winning the lottery of going from a drug affected mom to Buster Posey?
Yeah, no kidding. Did you want to do your Kapler rant, or do you want to save that for another day?
I'll save it for another day.
Because he's been actually doing relatively well.
He's doing better. He still sucks, and I still want to see him gone, but he's been doing a little better.
Right. All right. So let's do one more sponsor shout out here, and then we're gonna get into some 49ers talk, just because there's a lot of stuff circling around there about that. So recently we brought on another partner, Fidelis Canine Training, owned by Patrick Smith. He's a former Marine. He's worked with a lot of law enforcement, and Patrick has Fidelis Canine Training based out here in Rancho Cordova. He works with, creating companion dogs, getting your dogs, breaking bad habits, being around other dogs, whatever the case may be. He also specializes in finding dogs for veterans. So they're in constant contact with a lot of shelters and different organizations that may have a dog that needs a new home. Patrick takes them in, trains them, gets them ready, and then donates them to veterans so they have their companion dogs. It's a great service that he does. But on top of that, he also works with everyday folks with their dogs as well. I've taken both of my dogs now about a month now that they've been going to Fidelis, and I can promise you that the changes are real. They're amazing. Just after 2 drop-offs, they were dropped off from 8 to 5 on a couple of visits, and my dogs are completely different dogs. Thor, my male German Shepherd, is one of those dogs that was very protective, did not like other dogs, big, small, or indifferent, and he didn't like people coming up to him either. He was very much protective. After 1 drop-off, we actually have been able to take Thor now to different pet stores, to Home Depot, to the park, and he's chill. He's all about just being by us. He doesn't care about what's going on around him, while still being an alert star, The dog, if you look at the picture of the dogs there, the second from the right, she's out there with 5 other dogs. She's never been around dogs her entire life except for Thor. She is not friendly with other dogs either. And weekly, I shit you not, she looks forward to the moment when everyone's off leash and she gets to play, because she gets to make friends and play and chase the balls and play in the pools and do whatever she can. And that is all thanks to Fidelis. Multiple friends have taken them their dogs there and seen a difference after one day. They do group lessons twice a week. They do drop-offs. They do private lessons. They're building a brand new facility. They're offering memberships here coming up soon. Group packages. Everything's available. You can go to their website, fideliscanine.com, or you can go to their Facebook page. Check it out. I'll link it to our page as well. Great, great people, veteran-owned and operated, and changes dogs' lives. I'm a huge fan of them. My dogs are going to continue to go there, and you can take your dogs there also. Give them a call. Again, his name is Patrick, 916-337-0104. You can call or text. He's usually pretty more responsive to text in the very beginning, but definitely do not hesitate to give them a call, and you will not be disappointed at all. 49ers. Football is back in 2 weeks. The NFL's back. They've scrapped the preseason, which I think is going to be great for a lot of teams. A lot of the older teams are going to be able to benefit from that just because it's less reps on their veterans, while I think a lot of the younger teams are eventually going to suffer a little bit just because they're not getting those reps. We'll kind of break down each division and football next week on the show just so that we can kind of run through everything. But a couple things have been standing out to me about the 49ers that I wanted to discuss. And the Niners right now, if you pay attention to the news, Earl Thomas was just released by the Ravens. The Niners are one of the 3 teams that are linked to him right now. I think Richard Sherman could have a big role in that, simply for the fact that, they were together in Seattle. They have unfinished business together that they want to complete. And I could see that potentially being a marriage that works. And I want to lay this out to you just because I was thinking about this today. What if? So Richard Sherman's on the last year of his deal. Let's say they are able to bring in Earl Thomas on a 2-year deal. Thomas comes in into the strong safety role. The Niners sign Richard Sherman. I think a safe bet would be another 3-year deal under the condition that he follows the path of Charles Woodson when he went to Green Bay and shifts from the cornerback role to the free safety role. Imagine a 2-year deal or 2-year window where you have Witherspoon and Mosley as your outside corners, and then you have Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman playing center field, along with that Niners front end and that solid linebacking core.
He's going to score.
That defense would be phenomenal. I hope it happens. Regardless, I hope Sherman is re-signed and he shifts over to the free safety role. I don't think he wants to leave San Francisco. I think he likes it there. I think he knows it's about time for him to shift over to safety. But I was salivating thinking about that before the show. The other thing that has me completely just mesmerized is, first of all, injuries have been very minor, which is very, very good. James says he doesn't see either of it. He doesn't see Sherman shifting to free safety, which I think is a little bit close-minded. I think you're going to see Sherman eventually shift over if he wants to prolong his career. He just lost that speed on the back end to keep up with these younger wide receivers. But everyone that I've listened to, Matt Miyoko and every other 49er beat reporter, Matt Barrows, and all the way up and down the line, literally have said, aside from like Kittle and, the Sherman and Garoppolo battle that's been going on and, the running back staying healthy and all that other stuff going on, everyone is gravitating to one-on-one drills. And that surrounds Nick Bosa versus Trent Williams.
Ooh.
Right tackle, left tackle, right guard. And Bosa arguably is one of the best, or will be one of the best, right tackles in all football. His drive, his ability, his strength is
defensive
end. I'm sorry, yes, is already second to none. Trent Williams, who the Niners have to re-sign. I mean, I know they restructured him, but they're going to have to re-sign him. Trent Williams, if you haven't gone on Instagram and watched his workout videos, you absolutely need to. This guy is a fucking freak of nature. Okay. agility, speed, leaping ability, strength, all of it is there. It is mind-blowing watching this guy just work out, let alone play. In practice on Thursday, Bosa and Williams went one-on-one 7 times. If you're grading Bosa on wins, losses against Williams, I don't know if you saw the story or not, but what do you think the score was for Bosa versus Williams? If you're giving the score to Bosa's side, so wins and losses on a basically a best of 7 series against Williams, what do you think the outcome was?
5-2.
0-7. Bosa did not get past Trent Williams once.
Oh shit!
Every swim move, every forearm shiver, every stutter step, Bosa was gobbled up by Trent Williams. And it wasn't because he's not doing well. It's the fact that Trent Williams is that fucking good.
He's a badass.
They showed a clip that Bosa did a jab step to the inside and then in the same motion bounced outside. Williams other way around, outside, inside. Williams completely bit on the outside fake, shifted his entire body weight to the left. Before Bosa finished his plant, Williams was back in front of him and stopped the move. He's a 380-pound dancer. He literally is so light on his feet, so quick with his movements. Every left tackle in football should be terrified by this because there's not another Trent Williams in football. He's going to be – it's like when you're younger and you play basketball against your older brother. You only get better by playing kids better than you. This is going to make Bosa even more freaking ridiculous because he's going to go to that line knowing that he's not facing Trent Williams. Quarterbacks should be scared. Other offensive linemen need to be shivering a little bit because they're going to have to figure out a way to compensate and throw double teams and do whatever they're going to have to do against Bosa. Not to mention you have Kinlaw, Armstead, Ford, insert player here that's going to be wreaking more havoc. DJ Jones. It's going to be a nightmare for this defensive line. Then you have your linebacking core of, Quan Alexander and Greenlaw and all these different guys that are out there. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, I just want to watch the defense. I don't care about the offense. The offense is going to be fine. Not to mention, on the flip side of that, is there anybody right now watching those drills that isn't happier than a right-handed quarterback named Jimmy Garoppolo? Knowing that Bosa can't get past Trent Williams in aggressive one-on-one deals, his blind side is going to be growing moss on it.
Right?
Like no one's going to get to his blind side. It's going to be ridiculous. The Niners have a different era right now, or aura around them, I should say, of confidence. They're not seeing anything as far as the Super Bowl hangover goes. And let's be real, they kind of got a good draw on the schedule as well. They have the AFC West, so they're going to have revenge against the Chiefs. They're going to have to worry about the Chargers, who are now starting over. They have the Raiders, which is going to be interesting. And then the Broncos shouldn't be much trouble. And then on the flip side, they also have the AFC East, which is going to draw New York, which shouldn't be an issue. Miami's going to still be a troublesome team. Buffalo is probably the best up-and-coming team in that division. And then you have New England, where Stidham is hurt. They're not sure what his status is going to be for the season. And they're flipping a coin on Cam Newton. So while their defense is
I don't think anybody really expects Cam Newton not to be the starting quarterback there.
Right. And, it's going to be, he's auditioning for a multi-year deal. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. If he wants to stay in New England, this is his chance. I have a feeling he's going to play well. But if he's not mobile and he's not Cam Newton of years past, then, New England's going to be in trouble as well. So the Niners should have a pretty good path to do what they want should they decide that they want to be, the most dominant team in football. And I think this season is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And like I said, we'll break down all the divisions and all the different stuff, in the coming weeks. Mike, that's going to be Buffalo, I think, is going to be one of the best teams in the AFC. I think, and you can mark it right now. We're at 117 on Sunday, the 23rd. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to have a top 3 defense in the NFL, if not probably a top 2 defense in the NFL. That defense is so underrated. They've made a lot of good moves. They're going to be good. And Doug Marrone always has a good defense, and this team is going to be very strong going forward. I think they're the team to beat in the AFC East. And it's going to be interesting. But one last thing I want to talk about before we end today with football is Kansas City announced that their opening night game against Houston in Kansas City is going to have fans. They've said that there's going to be a 20% capacity, which puts about 18,000 people in the seats. Obviously, they're going to be spread out. Seats are going to be marked off, whatever. There's going to be a lot of open seats, which is, ideal for this situation. But realistically, if you had to give it a percentage, how likely is it that you think fans are going to be in that? Mike, Brandon Ayuk did leave practice with a hamstring. They're calling it minor and precautionary that he left practice. So it's something to keep an eye on. D Ford also left practice with a minor injury, and someone else did as well. What percentage do you give the Kansas City Chiefs for any NFL game from having fans this season?
A percentage? Well, they're going to try to do it on the first game. So I think
but what do you think the likelihood that NFL comes in and says no, it's not happening? Because here's the deal: they can space seats, but what about the parking lots, the entry gates, the concession stands, the bathrooms, the merchandise shops? Like, there's no way that they're going to be able to keep 18,000 people apart the entire time.
Yeah. Well, there's sports doing it. I mean, I think soccer's doing it a little bit now.
Overseas, not here.
And NASCAR is doing it a little bit, a few races here and there. I don't know. I mean, I think it goes back to what you talked about, with Major League Baseball players. We're going to have to start doing something at some point. This disease isn't going to go away. We're not going to get a complete 100% cure. It's going to be around. So,
I mean, God forbid that the mortality rate creeps up above 0.4.
Right. So, at some point, at some point we're going to have to start moving forward, and I heard yesterday somebody was asking about concerts. I was listening to, I don't know what station it was, but somebody said, when do you think concerts are going to start back up again? And the guy said 2023.
No fucking way.
So, yes, this is a horrible disease. Yes, there's people dying. But we don't need to talk about that stuff here. I don't want to. We're going to have to start gradually starting to reopen things. And, if they can figure out how to space people around and get 15 to 20,000 people in an NFL stadium, I let them try it.
Yeah.
I think even more importantly with the Kansas City Chiefs is no more headdresses, no more Indian face paint, and they're looking at the tomahawk chop to see if they can give that the tomahawk chop.
Don't even fucking get me started on that shit. Because
and apparently they're not going to play that stupid music that they play all the time.
The cancel culture is ruining sports, and I'm over it.
I don't mind that being canceled.
Why?
Because it's annoying.
Okay, so annoying or history. Like that, to me, that's part of their history. You're annoyed by the Raider fans that are in the game. You're not going to ban all of them. You're annoyed by Laker fans or Warrior fans, being around. You're not going to ban them. What's the most annoying thing that's ever happened at a 49ers game or a football game? And I tell you what it is right now. You're walking through the concessions or on the promenades, and you don't even have to be playing the fucking Raiders. And what do you have? One jackass. Raiders, like you can't get rid of annoying fans. It's not going to happen. It's going to be there. That's part of their heritage. Their drums in the beginning, their chop, all of that stuff. The fact that the fucking Washington football team is now called that is a fucking joke.
Yeah.
It's the cancel culture is real. It's fucking ruining things. It's when the Indian tribe of the Redskin logo comes out and says we're honored for that to be the logo, that should have been the end of that discussion right there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of woke white folks that don't agree.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's not go down this slippery slope.
We're not, but I'm just saying, like, you don't take away. It's fucking noise, okay? You don't need to take that out of the game. The headdresses can stay.
Speaking of noise, I'm going to take a step backward. What do you think about the noise that they're pumping into the Major League Baseball games? Does that bother you at all?
Not at all. I don't mind it at all. At times, I forget that it's fake noise.
Yeah,
they're doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, whoever's doing it, especially at Oracle or whatever the fuck they call it now, they're getting the little nuances. Somebody hits a double, Joey Bart hits a double. You hear the fans get louder and hear him screaming, and then they calm down, and there's kind of that ambient, just kind of.
Their timing is impeccable when it comes to, a hit, a home run, an out. Like, they're whoever's on their soundboard or on their control board is literally just. They're literally like focus is impeccable. It's like, okay, the second the ball is caught, bam, and it's like a cheer, and it's like, damn, they're really doing a great job with that. So I'm a big fan of that for sure.
I am too.
But at first I thought it was going to bother me. The only thing I don't like is, and you alluded to it earlier, is I don't like Fox superimposing the fans in. It looks corny as hell. Yeah, they're not doing a good job. It looks like a Madden crowd where every single fan's moving the exact same way over and over and over again, and it doesn't look right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm all about the fan noise though. That's working out well for me. I'm enjoying it. I like the cardboard cutouts. I was gonna do one, and I wish I did it because
how much were they?
They were $100, but at the end of the season, you get your cutout, and it's authenticated by Major League Baseball as a game used item. Which I kind of wish I would have done it. There's 30 games left. I mean, you can still technically do it. They're still accepting them. But that would have been cool to have just as a token of whatever. The Kansas City fan that put the dude from Weekend at Bernie's behind home plate is a fucking genius. And I'm shocked, and I don't know if they've done it, but I'm shocked that Bartman is not at Wrigley Field somewhere.
I haven't watched the game yet, so
yeah,
that seat has to have a Bartman cutout in it.
That would be fucking hilarious if they did.
Did you see the guy? Did you see the guy in the NBA bubble? A Philadelphia fan was on the big on
the video
jumbotron or whatever, falling asleep, I think he had himself in was it a bag, or did he have a blindfolded or
something like that? Yeah, a lot of fun. Anything else you want to cover?
Oh, I'm good.
Sweet. Well, that was an hour.
Just fun being back.
It is. So, as we alluded to last week, we're gonna try to be consistent. Today was a little bit of an anomaly just because of the fact that I didn't have work today. I normally do on a Sunday. So, we'll try to be on Sunday evenings with consistency. If that doesn't occur, we're just going to make sure that we do a weekly show. So, we don't want to have lapses where we go a couple weeks without a show. So we'll try to get a show in at least once a week, closest to the weekend as possible. We're going to continue to do our minute, 91.6-ish second updates. You're in charge next week, so keep that in mind. And we'll do those. And then, that way we're keeping up to date on like stats and, game happenings. And then we'll cover topics like we did today on the show. So something to look forward to. I know you don't give two rats ass, but there is a WWE Super Show today. Pay-per-view, SummerSlam.
Fantasy football?
Fantasy football, we draft next Sunday. It's set it's set to 7:30 a.m. right now. That's not the case. It'll be 7:30 p.m.
I can't do it.
What time do you have a draft? What time?
7.
Okay, then maybe I'll try to do it Saturday night. Oh fuck, we have a draft. TJ's Saturday night. Maybe we'll do it earlier. Maybe we'll do like a 3 o'clock. Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'll reach out to everybody and see what's going on. Expanded our league to 10 teams instead of 8 this year.
Okay.
But we're also doing it via online draft. So if everyone else's consensus on that time and you can't do it, then you can set your priorities and do an auto pick as well. Because we're gonna do it just directly through the Yahoo platform. We're gonna do it on a Zoom call so everyone's able to banter and bullshit. And we'll go from there. So we'll figure it all out. It'll work out. But yeah, it's good to be back. Show 304 is in the books. And we will see you guys some point next week.
Night, Larry.
Later, guys.